All right, guys, welcome to class. How are all you today? Good. So good? Yes? I heard like one or two people. How are you today? Good. There we go. That's a little bit more chipper. All right, so we kind of have to hit the ground running a little bit today because your class is actually pretty behind the other two classes, and we got to catch you up just a little bit. Before we start, though, a couple things to note. Number one, there is no homework today. You get a break. Yay! Yay! Now, part of this is actually slightly negative for this class. So, what is that? Well, we've had 2 homework assignments now, and your class has the lowest GPA out of my 3 classes. And no clapping. Bad. And it's mostly because students aren't turning in homework assignments. We had 1/3 of you guys not turn in the first homework assignment. So that's really not good. The first one was the comparison assignment. Whoever said that? Okay, good. So make sure you are doing homework. So this catch-up day is for those students who haven't turned in anything in this class. So you need to be turning it in, okay? The other thing is, I have a really important date to give you, so if you use a planner to put dates in, a phone, maybe you write yourself a letter and you mail it to yourself to remind you of dates, a pager maybe, a rock that you write on, something like that, okay, whatever you have for dates, okay? So the date that you need to know is September 7th. That is next Friday, is your first quiz in this class. Next Friday, September 7th, first quiz in this class. Online, you will see that it says that it's the day before, but again, I can only put in, I'll put it in for A-Day to remind you. But things that's going to be over is going to be pre-1492 Native Americans. This is Clover Notes. Okay? Colonization, that is boat notes. And then you will get the Revolutionary War notes next class period. Okay? So those are what is going to be over. The Quizlet is already up online. If you want to go ahead and access that Quizlet, there's a practice quiz online as well that I'll be putting up over the weekend. So if you want to start studying, then awesome. But the major thing that you need to know is next Friday is your guys' first quiz. We'll go over what that'll look like in the next couple of days. It's 20 multiple choice questions as well as 1 essay. You get a choice between 2 different essays. If you do both, you get extra credit. And I will explain that when I go over what the quiz will look like. Sound good? Okay, so we're a little bit behind, so I would love to sit here and chat. I'd love to get going because we are about 25 minutes behind in this class. Okay? All right, so you should have boat notes out. And we are on... Yeah, this is where we're at. Okay. So remember, the starving time. Where was this location at that the starving time was going on? Jamestown, right? So Jamestown is going on. Remember, we have a relationship with the Puritans. We're trying to make it... Do you have a question? Starving time, it's next to... It's Jamestown is what's on there. I'm just telling you more information about Jamestown. Okay? Unfortunately, though, only 2 years after Jamestown is founded, they are unable to survive. There's a really bad farming season because of a drought. Supposedly a hurricane is going to put several toxins into the water source, so now you don't have water anymore. And people begin to get very, very sick. To the point that during this winter, they're going to have the starving time when nobody's able to eat, and people begin to die. Well, the good news is, when somebody dies, you now have meat.
Gross.
Yep, so they're going to turn to cannibalism because... they need a way to be able to survive. A lot of people didn't realize at the beginning they were eating human flesh. They just thought it was really chewy meat. But it was a way to survive. Because at this point, about 90% of the Jamestown residents are going to die. They do come back in the next year. But, not after being eaten. No. The 10% come back and are able to survive and create a thriving colony. But it was really hard to be able to live into Jamestown. Now, Anglicanization, this is the general idea that they wanted to be like English society. So they lived very proper. That's why when you think about the American Revolution, they drink tea and things like that. This changes with the American Revolution, though. But if you're wondering how they were similar to the English people. Now, the thing that I would write down for Maryland, do you guys remember when I said to connect joint stock company and proprietary colony? Just make sure you know that a proprietary colony is going to be the other type of colonial type. So a proprietary colony is where instead of having investors go and invest money to create a business in the Americas, you are instead going to buy up your own land and send your own people. So these are going to be the less rich places, but it's another way to be able to come over into the colonies. Skip. All right, so now we're going to get to our activity. So for this activity, we're going to be getting into groups. Okay? Now, these groups is going to be for the next 30 or so minutes. So once I put you into groups, you're just going to move all your desks into a nice little clump, and then I'll hand out the stuff that you need for the assignment, okay? All right, great. So let's split people. Okay, so we're going to do U4 right here. Okay, U plus U4 in the back, so a group of 5. We're going to do, let's do U3 plus U, group of 4, and then U5. Okay, do 4 and 4. And then we'll do U5 to this group. We'll do U5 right here. And then you guys are a group of 6. Okay? So make a giant blob. Group yourselves together. Push your desks together. Yeah, you can steal that. No, that was one of our spare chairs. That's fine. Here. Make anything. No worries. Once your group gets this packet, please write everybody's names on the top of the paper so I know who's in everybody's groups. I'm about to give you some maps for your group. Underneath the top paragraph, it says region letter. There's a letter on your map. So make sure everybody has one of these maps and then just write the region letter on your paper. What's that? Oh, thank you. No, we are not playing Settlers of Catan.
I want to kill you. I'm going to make you.
What? That's because only the favorite students get them. Oh! Just kidding. What region are you, B?
Yeah.
Okay. This is when he's like, all right, I'm out of this class. That was the straw. Hold on, don't start, you little jump-aheaders. Yeah, what's up? What's that?
The reason B and I got us.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, listen. Okay, listen. Okay. Hold on. Shh. You'll want the instructions. Some of you are being really buddy-buddy, but you're going to realize that the people around you are necessary to survive because you have just landed in the Americas. Unfortunately, you know nothing really about this place that you're going, but you're expected to be able to survive. Now, a month before your arrival, you sent a scout ahead to be able to figure out what this area that you were headed to would look like and be like. From this information, they have created a map for you that, in theory, you are supposed to figure out your entire settlement based on this map. So here's what you're going to do. Reading over the map, looking at the key, such as when's the growing season, how hot is it, where are your animal products, and things like that. You must figure out how to be able to survive in your region. There is no, I'm going to go to another region. There is no, I'm going to bail and go back to England. You have to be able to survive or you all die like Roanoke. Okay? So, working together with your group, your goal is to fill out your worksheet on how you are going to be able to survive in this environment. Okay? Ready? Go. Oh, sorry. Again, only the favorite students get maps.
Like I said, you can't even have favorites yet. You don't even know your name.
I don't have favorites, but if I did, they would get the map.
Thank you.
Oh, but we don't. So we compare other
Remember that it's helpful to talk to each other while doing this assignment. So a couple of groups are kind of staring at each other as one person does all the work. Talking is much more helpful. Your what is better than your what? Okay. Sounded weird. Where is my poster? I don't know, but it sounded weird, whatever they were saying. You guys are my trouble group, aren't you?
We enslaved the natives.
Huh?
We enslaved the natives, like Columbus.
Or not necessarily natives, we can slave our natives.
It's historically
What I
accurate.
will, well, the subjugation of the Central and South American slaves were a lot easier than the North, because up there you have the Iroquois and the Powhatans, who are known, rather than being subjugated, they will slaughter. You slaughter you in the middle of the night. So for example, there's one story, and we won't learn it in class, but there was one story where they got just fed up with the colonists, and so they surrounded their fort with about 300 men. They circled it 7 times, which is traditional in their ritual, and they burned it to the ground and they shot everybody. Mostly because it was either the Powhatans or the Iroquois or the Algonquians. What I can tell you is that the reason why is because they were able to trade with the French, because the beaver pelts, they acquired guns, whereas the Central and South didn't have them.
So
they're going to shoot you.
So we can't
just replicate that.
You can try to enslave them, but you're going to die.
Let's learn from the natives. Let's learn their farming. And let's learn their taxes.
That's better.
Let's learn how their forces.
At this point, you should be at least on question 4. Question 4, if you're doing that, you are on track. I think I would probably expand on some of your answers. Your answers are a little short. At this point, you should be on the back page and be able to finish up within the next 5 or 6 minutes. Where did he go? Oh, he definitely didn't check me. Okay.
What's that?
I don't even think there's anything else. 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning. So we had a group from last class not turn in all their papers and then also wrote all over this one. So you guys have free to share. Is that okay? Sure. All right, Kate, coming together. Kate, coming, listen together. Okay? All right, so here's what you're going to do next. In your packet with the staples, okay, you need to go ahead and flip it to the second paper. It looks just like the papers that I just barely handed out to your group. A bunch of shit manifests. Okay. Alright, listen. Hey. Okay. So, now first off, I need to make this clear because we already had one group from last class not follow the directions, so make sure that you are following the directions. Okay? So, yes.
We only got one.
I gave you 3.
They were maps.
Okay. Yeah, okay, another thing that the last class did is they all took my shit manifests. So don't do that. Just take the other one that's in the packet and give it to the other side. And just look off that one. I meant keep it attached because it's part of your grade. We'll have to staple it in just a second. Okay? So look at this side together. Okay. Anyways, so You guys are looking at what is called a ship manifest. Now, a ship manifest is who came over to a certain area on the ship. So things that you could see is you could see what are their names, who are they related to, their numbers on there, their ages. What I want you to do is with your group, and again, you are only writing on the stapled together paper, is I want you to figure out what are you noticing. Okay? What are you seeing? What are you understanding? What are some similarities and differences? You can make a bulleted list. You can connect things and make brackets. However you can show what you're noticing in these two manifests, okay? All right, ready, you go. Yeah. On the thing that is...
On the one that's...
Yeah.
Wait, what was so female, male? Okay, that's all.
You're looking at both sides, so there's two different manifests. You're looking at both sides and seeing what are similar.
Where do we write these similarities?
On the staple paper. Yeah, that one right there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the same age.
What are you noticing?
Okay. Where are the ages?
So you can make this and this. It's up to you right now.
Is anyone even over here? There's 140.
Here, so you can say like whatever you're saying is just
I didn't even say, I didn't even go.
There's an extra chart.
On the back side, there's one 32-year-old, and then the rest are
One minute warning.
Oh yeah, work better.
It's a singles retreat.
I wouldn't call it a retreat. It's singles, but they're not mingling.
But not all of these are.
The women are there to mingle, but the men aren't going there specifically to mingle.
I'm the one writing. Oh, I get ya. Wait, did you write on the... Yeah, did you write
Remember when I said all the things that you should write are only on the staple?
Yeah. Oh, here, let me include something.
That was like a direction.
Make sure I didn't write anything.
You're not supposed to write on those at all. Those are class copies.
Oh my gosh, guys.
I didn't do anything.
I told them, I tried.
All right, coming together. Okay, listen. Okay, coming together. All right, so I want you guys to turn your document right now to document B. So I want you to be looking at document B. Okay, raising your hand, what are some of the things that you are noticing about this document? What are the people like? Yes.
Men had many wives and children.
I wouldn't say they have many wives.
Well, more than one.
One person has more than one.
Only one person has more than one.
Wait, doesn't?
Okay, so, but we do notice that they're married couples, right? So married, coming together, and families.
They appear to be, most of them appear to be somewhat wealthy because many bring along a servant.
Yeah, so we know these people are coming with servants, which we'll actually talk about those servants. They're more slaves than servants. They just use servant as a little bit nicer way of saying pretty much a slave. But yeah, we know that they are wealthy. Also, do they have jobs? Yes. They actually have to state that as they come, so they are coming with some sort of an occupation. Okay, what else? That's it? Yeah.
What's a husbandman?
Oh, that's a great question. So, back in the day, animal husbandry was the name for a veterinarian. So, animal husbandry is basically somebody who works with animals. So, they can either be a veterinarian, or they could also be just somebody who works really well with animals, in particular horses or cattle. Yeah. Okay. Any more things you're noticing about this?
There's someone working.
Huh? What's that?
Kinswoman.
Show me it. So I can make sure I'm doing it. Oh, kinswoman. So a kinswoman is somebody that they are related to, but not somebody in their immediate family, because a kin is your extended family.
Like a cousin.
Yeah, like a cousin or an aunt or an uncle or something along the lines of that. Now another thing too, do you guys see how many kids they have? A lot, right? Now a lot of this has to do with the mortality rate back then. Back then, the average age of death for a woman was 35 and a male was 40. So the thing is, if you also notice, somebody last class made the connection, one of the wives had her first child at 10. Okay? Now that was not uncommon during this time. If you think about when a woman has their first cycle, that first cycle is when they can have children. And so typically after a woman has that first cycle, they will be married off and then immediately start to have kids. And the reason why is because you want an heir to be able to inherit your property. So the average woman would have 12 kids constantly back in a row. But because the mortality rates, only about maybe 4 of those kids will live past 5. So if you've ever done family history, hey, listen. If you've ever done family history and you've noticed a family that maybe has 3 or 4 kids that died on the same day they were born, that was very common during this time. You tried to have as many kids as you could, because most of them are not going to survive. So unfortunately, the ship manifest, all those younger kids are highly unlikely to live past the age of 5. About 90% of kids, 80 to 90%, die before the age of 5. Yeah, it's really sad. And you really want a male heir, because women cannot inherit property. Okay, flipping it over to document C. All right, raising your hand. What we're noticing about Doc C. Doc C. Yes. Okay, so we have a really old person, but what about the rest? How old about they? Yeah, they're 20 to 30. We call that the working age. So while we have some that are older, which are probably going to be either an elder, a church leader, something like that, most of them are of working age.
Oh, I was just going to say they're very young.
Okay, yeah, very young. Oh, and that's a good one, single. You guys notice how only 2 of them have the same last names? Everybody else is single. They're not coming with anybody else.
There's a lot less women than men.
Yeah, there's a lot less women than men. And most of the time, those women are there to make babies for the men at some point. They're not coming over. They're basically coming over as a way, if somebody were to survive the South, then they would become those people's wives.
Yeah, so it appears to be just like more temporary because they're not really moving their whole lives over. They're just going.
Now, what I'll say is it is permanent, but what I would say is instead of bringing your family over, you're basically starting an entirely new life with absolutely no baggage. So these men would arrive typically with maybe 1 bag of their stuff in it, and that was it. Now, unfortunately, what they don't realize is you make a ton of money in the South, a lot, but your average lifespan is 2 years on a plantation in the South. Reason why is because there's so much disease and so much death from work, but they make a ton of money. You guys have heard of Chernobyl before? Chernobyl was that really big event that happened in Russia where there was that nuclear disaster. People still work at Chernobyl. They're allowed to work there once a month for the 12 months, and they make about $500,000 for the year in annual income. But it also takes off 20 years of your life. So you make $500,000 a year, but you're going to live 20 years less than you would have if you hadn't worked at Chernobyl. Same thing happens here. You make a ton of money, but you're only going to live about 2 years. Very short lifespan. Okay, now we're going to translate this, all of these activities, into the differences between the colonial types. So on your boat notes, leave everything where it is. You're just grabbing out your boat notes. Okay? And flip to the second page. Second page of boat notes. Okay, now this page is very important. This is you must study this for the AP exam page. Okay? So yeah, the second page, the one with the map, I would highlight it, star it. This is a must need to know for the AP exam. So what happens is just like you guys in your first activity, you are going to have to decide as you come over how you're going to survive based on your landscape. This creates 3 extremely distinct regions in America. Now we're going to go through each region and I'm going to tell you the most important things in each of them. So make sure you have a highlighter out or something to write with, okay? So we're going to start with New England. Those are the northern colonies. The things that I would make sure to star is the second one, little agriculture. The main reason for this is that little agriculture is going to be because it's too rocky and too cold to grow. So instead, on the next one where it says fishing, I would go ahead and circle that. That becomes their major source of income, is because if you can't have agriculture, you got to eat somewhere, so you're going to eat fish. If you go to Boston, Massachusetts, that's in New England, what food are they very famous for?
Fish. Well,
very specific one. Very, very famous for Boston. All their magnets are of this animal.
Con?
No. Okay. That's okay. Yeah, it's a lobster. Lobster rolls.
Boston?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, I think Maine.
No, Maine's also famous for the lobster as well. But Maine is not a colony at this time because they're owned by France. Okay? Now, next thing, and this is the most important, if you're going to know anything for this box, it is the 4th bullet, no religious freedom, and you must know the word Puritan. It is one of the most important terms for this section of the AP course. And we're going to talk about Puritanism as soon as we're done with this activity. I would also star the lots of families bullet. Reason why there's lots of families is because it's so cold that mosquitoes can't breed there, therefore diseases can't breed there. A lot of people say that when they want to get healthy when they're old, they either go to someplace very cold or they go to someplace very warm where mosquitoes can't survive. And so these guys are going to be in that very cold area. In the middle colonies, the most important bullet for that is the second bullet. That is the breadbasket colonies. Breadbasket colonies. That is the name of that region because that is the agricultural center of the country. And if you want to make sure you know agricultural, it is the agricultural center of the colonies. They're the ones that are going to make all the grains, all the cattle is going to be there, the cheese, the dairy, all that fun stuff. I would know religious freedom as well as the most diverse region. And that can either be underlined or starred. Really, that's where everybody goes. That's the unordinary. That's where all the misfits go, whether it be for religion, for culture, whatever it could be. Middle colonies are the least likely to be asked on the AP exam unless it's the breadbasket agricultural colonies. And then in the South, you need to star plantations, as well as the second one, very warm, which means lots of diseases. Mostly this is because of mosquitoes. Lots of mosquitoes, lots of malaria, lots of disease. Then I would make sure to star plantation economy, and that's going to be through slavery. Underline the word Anglican. That's going to be the major religion of this area. And then very wealthy. And if you want to do like a little arrow to slave ownership, that's what makes them so wealthy is their tobacco. Next to plantations at the top, by the way, if you will write the words tobacco and indigo, those are the two crops. Cotton does not become profitable until the year 1800. So now, with your group, look back at your original maps that you were doing, your region maps. Each of your region maps is one of the three areas of the colonies, the northern, the middle, or the southern. Your job is to figure out which one it is. So talk it over for a minute. Which one is it?
Oh, you can tell by the shape.
You're right.
No, you just have to think about it. Sorry, I just need to restart. My computer timed out. All right, coming back together. Okay, if you are region A, make sure you're off your cell phone. I gave you a second, but okay. So region A, are you the north, the middle, or the southern?
North.
The north. You could have told this many different ways. You could say all the trees. It actually says cold climate, short growing season. It's rocky. Okay. What about region B? Middle. Easiest way is the grains and the dairy products, which means that C is the south. The southern colonies. Good. Okay. So here's what you're going to do, and make sure you listen so that we don't get this messed up. Number 1, put all of your maps in one pile. Those are the ones I handed out to you. And put in another pile your shit manifests.
Nathan Roosh is in trouble.
I think your whole group's in trouble.
No, look. He wrote his name. Two people.
Yeah, it's because it's alright. Okay, then you are going to do the following and listen closely. One person is going to take the packet with all of your names and answers on it and is going to put it in the 3B bin. Then, another person should take the other 2 stacks of paper, and over on the table, I have laid out the region maps. We ran out of ship manifests, so just make a pile on the right. So there's 4 different piles. And then put my room back together the way it should be. So turn in your assignment, return my papers, and put the desk back. Don't hurt her.
I didn't feel like I didn't feel I like touched you. So now you're on
Yeah.
So I got a message from Remind from
Yeah.
the teacher tonight.
Yes, that's fine.
Is this where this goes?
Sure. Sure, it's closest. Are any of you, anybody know if anybody was sitting here?
No.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's my stuff.
Are you sitting here?
No, I'm sitting here.
Okay. I just wanted to be able to write on this paper.
Where do we put these?
There's a stack over there on the table. This desk. So they're supposed to. Okay, wait.
Good going, guys.
No, this desk is just way farther out than it has been in the past. So your desk needs to move up to be lined up here. And then your desk, just kind of push your 4 desks back a little bit. Okay. So good news, you guys made up about 10 minutes of time. Kudos. So now we're a little bit more on track because there's a really interesting activity we're going to do in just a second, and I want to make sure that we had time to do it. So those colonial differences are very important. We're going to transition from that and focus on religion in the colonies because that's one of the major themes in AP US history is religion in the colonies. Now, if you're one of my people who likes to combine the textbook with your notes, starting at religion in the colonies, we are now in chapter 4. Chapter 4. And we'll go back to chapter 3 in a short amount of time, but chapter 4 is mostly religion in the colonies. So when we talk about religion, we have to kind of look at what happened before to cause the now. Now, next to Age of Enlightenment and Glorious Revolution, I would connect those with a bracket and write the words historical context. That term means what happened before to cause the now. So this is what's happened before in Europe that now causes an impact on colonial America. So what are we looking at here? Well, first off, we have the Age of Enlightenment. Now, if you have heard of something like Galileo, right? That's the Age of Enlightenment here. Basically what happens is people now realize it's not all about God. Before it was the idea that God makes the people, God puts the earth at the center of the universe, God makes the stars. Well, now people start to say, no, it's science, right? The sun is now the center of the solar system. I don't know why I was thinking galaxy. I knew that was wrong. The solar system, right? Or saying there's something called inertia or gravity or anything along those lines. Now it's based on science, not just God. The impact of this is pretty heavy in England. That's called the Glorious Revolution. So if you took AP Euro or AP World, that's the Glorious Revolution. So in the Glorious Revolution, basically the power of the king is diminished because before you had the divine right of kings. And with the divine right of kings, it said that God designated you as a king. Well, if religion is no longer the central power of the world, well, now you don't have the right to be able to be a king. This is where the prime minister begins to go up. People are going to start to have more religious freedom. They begin to create their own religions instead of being forced to be in the Church of England. Although there is still some restriction. For example, all monarchs are required to be part of the Church of England. That's why they always have their weddings in the Church of England. But now we're going to start to have more religion in the colonies. Now this begins what is known as the Great Awakening. And this is going to be a very important box it, star it term. So, the Great Awakening. What you need to highlight is religious revolution, increased church attendance, increase in religious interest, and new churches. Now, next to Great Awakening, I would make sure to say that this is the first Great Awakening. The reason why is there's actually 2 Great Awakenings. We'll talk about both in this class. If you want a date for the first Great Awakening, it's going to be 1606. That's the beginning of colonization. To 1776, which is 1776. Declaration of Independence, the American Revolution. Okay? Yeah. 1606. That's right after Jamestown. So the Great Awakening is going to cause people to begin to transition into new churches across America and across the world. This is when people begin to go to mass sermons. They fall on the ground because they're overcome by Jesus Christ and God and His power. And people really begin to be fervent in religion during this time. Now, part of the reason of why this occurs is because many thought that it was God's given right for us to move into America and take native lands and move west. This was the Christian duty. Basically, Christians need to come to America to convert the Native Americans, get land, and become successful. So this is kind of where this idea of Christianity impacting the colonies is going to come from. Now, the really key things that you need to know, the two biggest churches that come from this, I would draw an arrow between separatists and Puritans and put know the difference. Now, the reason why is because a lot of people flip these, and on the AP exam, if you flip them, they will not give it to you. So you really need to know the difference between the two. So let's start with the separatists. Now, separatists is the word separate. So you need to know the word separate when it comes to separatists. Basically, they saw that the Church of England was so wrong that they need to create their own religions. They're going to physically separate themselves from the Church of England and create a brand new religion. These people are also called the Pilgrims. So what I would highlight is I would write, church was so corrupt, create a whole new religion. And this is really that term, separate from the Church of England. Now, Mayflower Compact, I would underline that. It's come up a couple times on the AP exam in its 40-year history. The Mayflower Compact is basically the very first government system in America. They basically agreed to work together as a community and come together rather than possibly not following laws or anything like that. So they're going to land in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Now, if you have ever been in elementary school, I'm sure that you had the times around Thanksgiving where you made the fun hats and you talked about the Mayflower and the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria going around, and you had a great time, right? Well, that's really what these guys were. They came on Plymouth Rock, and they thought they were going to found this new church, but they knew nothing about how to survive in the Americas. So they're sitting around for about 2 hours trying to figure out how we're going to grow food. We didn't bring enough crops to be able to survive. When they meet this guy, Squanto, they see this Native American hanging out in the woods, and they think, all right, we're going to see if he can teach us how to be able to survive. Well, here was the problem. They didn't know a Native American language. So they're trying to figure out, how can I charade this or act this out to have him help? Well, they walk up to it. Squanto turns around and says, hey, guys. Except I'm sure in some fancy, like, hello, my fellow countrymen, or whatever it could be. Turns out Squanto is fluent in English and in French. This is very helpful for the colonists because now they have somebody who can teach them everything in their native language. Squanto teaches them all about the ways of life, how to farm, how to fish, how to survive. Because of this, it becomes a great relationship with the native tribes. This is the Algonquians and the Iroquois. And because of this, they are going to create the first Thanksgiving, right? And I'm sure that you've heard all that story. You made the cute little handprints that turned into turkeys, right? Had a great time as a kid. Well, what happens is that when they teach them how to farm, they are going to become successful at it. And because of that, they invite the Native Americans to participate in this great harvest feast known as Thanksgiving nowadays, but that didn't happen until the 1800s. It was the harvest festival to celebrate. Make sure you're not texting, by the way, in class. So what they're going to do is they're going to celebrate this great harvest by basically coming together, eating a bunch of food, and they do this for several years until their relationship falls apart. That's why Thanksgiving gets made as a national holiday in the late 1800s, and they pardon the turkey. Do you guys know they do that? If you don't know, every year the president picks a turkey and he pardons it, and it can never be eaten. It gets to live its life out on the farm.
The governor also does that.
Huh?
The governor also does that.
Yeah, I know not all the governors do, but the famous one is the president because he holds up the turkey and he's like, it's pardoned. Fun fact. Okay. I don't know if that's what the pardon was supposed to be created for in the Constitution, but hey, it works with the turkey. So now let's get to the really, really important. This is a crucial term. It is asked on every AP exam. So this is a must-know term for the AP exam, which are the Puritans. So, things that I would highlight on this page. I would do the second one, or star it, where it says, purify the English church. Now, what happened is they didn't say that the Church of England was bad. They said it had problems. So they're just going to fix the problems in their new church. They're not completely moving away from the Church of England. They're just going to fix those problems. Then I would underline and note Massachusetts Bay Colony. If you ever see that term, it is immediately a Puritan reference on the AP exam. Then you should know this guy, John Winthrop. You guys heard of him before?
Homework last night.
If you say no, you didn't do your homework. Okay, who raising their hands can tell me about what this whole idea of a city upon a hill is? Who can tell me? Go ahead.
Is it like they were going to kind of be the examples for America?
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is from the Bible verse. If you are a scripture mastery person or you have read the New Testament, there is one of the most famous verses that basically says, a city upon a hill cannot be hid, neither can man light a bushel, or candlestick or something like that. You guys have heard probably that phrase before. I probably mixed it up, but that's okay. Anyways, so this idea of a city upon a hill is really an example to the world. They felt like as Puritans and as Christians, they were truly the light of the world. Everybody's eyes were on them. And because of that, they were going to be the example of the world. Everyone was going to become just like the Puritans. And he says this sermon 3,000 times across the United States of truly, we are the perfect people of the world. Now, this is translated even until today. Even Donald Trump has used this phrase of city upon a hill. It's the idea, especially in America, that America is the example, the light of the world. Everything that we do should be an example for what everybody else in the world should do, whether it be policy, whether it be decisions we make, or religion. America has used this several times during its history. We justify a lot of things based on this idea of city upon a hill. So it's a very important concept. The other thing I would underline, it's come up a few times, but I want you to be aware of it, is the term, and it's on the next page, halfway covenant. Now, the halfway covenant, here's what happens. The Puritans arrive, and everything's perfect. The perfect religion. Well, then guess what? They have kids, and we all know kids ruin everything, right? Because they become teenagers, and this is what happens. The teenagers gasp. They stop going to church. What are we going to do with them? And then, that whole 4 hours a day you're supposed to read the Bible, they only read it for an hour. What are we going to do? And then, worst of all, the women begin to kiss men without asking the men for permission. Yeah, we're going crazy here with all these teenagers. See, the teenagers are hoodlums, they're problems. Because here's the issue. You want to make it to heaven, right? That's like every Christian belief, to make it to heaven. Right. In Puritan beliefs, the minute you are born, you have already been predetermined if you're going to heaven or hell. You have no choice. You can be a perfect human, do everything great in life, and you can still go to hell because it's already predetermined. Well, the way to be able to tell if somebody is going to heaven or hell is by the way they act in society. So if they are getting into trouble all the time, going to jail, obviously they're going to hell. Because that's how God would show the world that they are a bad person. Well, here's the thing. 90% of the teenagers are clearly going to hell, right? They're not going to church. They're not reading their Bible. Parents don't really like the idea of all their kids going to hell. So instead, they come up with this really kind of cheap way of getting them into heaven. So basically, it says that if your parent or your grandparent was in the Puritan church, you automatically go to heaven. It doesn't matter if you don't go to church, or if you don't believe in the gospel or don't read the Bible. All that matters is that your parents were members. It's basically a way to say, we're still in this church, guys. It's not dying out, we promise. Our kids are going to heaven and they're Puritans, even though they don't care about the religion at all. There's a reason that the Puritan religion dies by the Revolutionary War. It's because by that point, nobody cares at all. Okay? Yeah, super fun back then. Now, the only other term that you may see every once in a while is this idea of the protesters. So if you see Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson, just know that they were anti-Puritan. So what happens with them is that basically they're going to say something that is anti-Puritan religion. For Roger Williams, he doesn't like the idea that the Puritan religion supports people taking Native American land. He says God never gave you the right to steal people's land. People don't like him. They chase him, and he goes and founds Rhode Island, which basically becomes a land of misfits. Anybody who's not Puritan or doesn't conform with that runs to Rhode Island in order to survive. It's the most religiously freedom area in the United States. Then you got the most scandalous woman, which is Anne Hutchinson. And you're not going to believe her. She's going to say women should have power in the church. Can you believe that? That's just crazy talk. In fact, it's so crazy talk that they hire 50 men to go kill her. And she runs 30 miles to Rhode Island in order to be saved. All because she wanted women to be in the church. Right? That's kind of that impact. Now, colonial life, I have this chart over here, but I want to focus on one really, really big con about what can happen when you are so obsessed with this Puritan religion. So we're going to do a little activity, okay? Somewheres in your paper, you're going to be making some little check marks or tally marks. Somewheres in this area. So I'm going to give you a quiz, okay? And in this quiz, if you have ever done this in your life, you're going to give yourself a little tally mark, okay? Now, this is because we don't want you guys to be embarrassed by what you're telling, what you're not telling. Put your little hand over it if you want. But we're going to see what you have done. And if you have done this thing, you're going to give yourself a little check mark. Okay? Somewhere's on your paper that you can make tally marks. Just somewhere's random in the area. Okay? So, for the first one, number 1. If you have ever thrown something, do you sometimes throw things? Maybe you get mad at your sister and you throw a shoe at them. I don't know. Maybe you've been playing Fortnite too long and you lose and you throw your controller. Okay? You throw something? Tally. I have never thrown the controller because I'm too scared of hitting my TV. I throw my headphones down and cooled off, but not my controller. Okay, number 2. So again, if you've thrown something, little tally mark. If not, move on. Number 2. Have you ever contorted your body, as in sports or with yoga? Contorting means your body moves in ways that are not like normal. So whether it be gymnastics, whether it be kicking up and down, whether it be yoga or stretching, anything along those lines. Okay, number 3. Have you ever uttered strange sounds? Yep. This is the first class I've had everybody like go to put something down. Should I be concerned? I always think of the slang words like yeet. What does that even mean? Like that's a strange sound. Why is that even a word anymore?
Why is anything a word?
I don't understand it. People are like yeet, yeet, yeet. I'm like shush, shush, shush. Goodness. Okay. Have you ever had an outburst or a fight in public? Verbal, preferably. Please do not admit to punching somebody in public. In public. At the mall, at a soccer game, whatever it could be. Okay, next one. Have you ever had a mole? By the way, apparently a lot of people don't know what moles are. They look like freckles, but they're like raised above your body. They're really common around your neck, so if you feel your neck and you feel any bumps that comes up, then you have a mole. I have like 40. You either usually have no moles or a ton of moles. Okay, have you ever attracted the opposite gender? This is either when everyone's like, oh yeah, that's me, or everyone's like, please don't notice I'm not marking things down. Be confident in yourself. It's okay. All right. Have you ever had bottles of ointment, such as shampoos or soaps?
Never did that.
I don't try to prove that.
Okay, have you ever looked at a horoscope before?
What's a horoscope?
A horoscope, do you know like what the star signs are, like Taurus, Capricorn? So basically, what they say is like based on your star sign, there are either psychics or star readers who interpret the future of your life based on your star sign. So it's like, oh, you're a Taurus, and the way that the stars are aligned, if you go out and do something new, you will meet new friends that will impact your life later on, or something like that.
Capricorn all the way.
Okay? Have you ever skipped church sometimes, or don't go? Oh yeah, this is another one where you either hide it or you're really proud of it.
I don't think I should get to like.
Okay, and last one. Have you ever yelled at somebody? If you say no, I don't believe it.
I'm very quiet.
I have an introvert.
Okay, if you have at least one check mark on your paper, raise your hand. All right, congratulations. You are all witches and are about to die. No, don't say yes. This is not exciting.
Pretty exciting.
Okay. Now, hey, I'm sure it's not fun. Okay, so all of these were ways in Puritan America that you could find out if somebody is a witch. Because one big negative about Puritan America is a large event that's going to be called the Salem Witch Trials. Very good. So we're going to talk about what happens and why Puritan America really shows itself during the Salem Witch Trials. So what occurred? Well, you have Abigail Williams and Betty Paris. They're 8 and 9. They're cousins. And they all of a sudden start to get mad at each other a bunch and have all these tantrums. And then they start to have these weird seizures, right? And people are like, okay, this is odd. Something is going on with these girls. So they bring them into the house of the Lord, because that's, where God's going to tell you what's going on. And they begin to suddenly fall on the ground. They say they see the devil in the corner. They're having seizures and fits, and obviously the town knows that something is wrong. Now, all of a sudden, all the girls in the town are having these fits and these seizures and saying that they're seeing the devil. And people need to figure out why this is occurring. Well, that's when they begin to accuse these witches. And there's 3 major ones that are going to be the first famous people that do this. Now, Tituba is going to be really easy to figure out why she was accused. First off, she was black. So that didn't help her at all.
Is that what she looked like?
Well, that's their artist rendering. She was not that scary. She was actually only 25 years old, even though she's made to look like that traditional witch that you think of from Halloween.
I was thinking if she looked like that.
Is she like 15 feet tall in that picture?
No, she's witches, they hunch over and they're like, give me your soul or something. I don't know. Okay? Now, Tituba was an African slave, which was extremely rare for the North, but she practices voodoo. Now, if you don't know, by the way, voodoo, and we're actually going to have a whole lesson about it, is actually a very wholesome, wonderful thing. In this religion, by the way, if you don't know, when you poke the voodoo dolls, that actually heals the person, not hurts them. It's actually all about healing and faith. So she brings this, though. The problem is, this also involves creating potions for their religious ceremonies. So she teaches her girls that she is in charge of all about this whole voodoo thing. And that's kind of where this idea that she was a witch comes from. Then you have people that are just undesirable, such as Sarah Good. She was a homeless beggar, right? Never got married, chose not to get married. And then you have something like Sarah Osborne. Now, Sarah Osborne's thing is that her brother died, left her a ton of money, and she was a woman. Women are not supposed to have that kind of money and property. But if she dies according to law, her neighbor gets that money. Who do you think is going to accuse her of being a witch? The neighbor, right? Because if she dies, good for me. So, how are you going to identify a witch? Because some of you might say, I think there might be a witch.
One.
What?
Because she looks like one.
No. There's way better ways. Now, by the way, many of these are very dangerous. Please do not perform them on others, okay? Don't be like, my AP teacher told me this is a good idea. No. So, first one, which is probably the gross... We don't have a lot of time, and I want to teach you this, or we have to skip it. Okay? So, this is called the witch's cake. Basically, they force the witch to use the restroom. Number 1, they take that number 1 stuff that she produced, they put it into a cake, they then bake the cake, take a child, feed it to the child, And if the child gets sick, she's a witch. Okay? Then, what they would do is, think about in your head if you've ever had a dream about another person. Now, regardless of that whole statistic of everybody in your dreams is supposedly somebody you've been in contact with in the past, nope. If they've been in their dream, they were a witch that went into your head and put themselves in your dream. Therefore, they are a witch. If you have a mole on your nose, especially, but anywhere on your face, supposedly the thing is that God wants you to know who the devil is in human form, which would be the witches. So he would mark them with a mole so that you could tell that they were a witch and that they were the devil. Yeah.
Isn't that more like a word?
Yeah, that's because modern day has kind of made it bigger as time has gone on. But any mole in general. If you have any glassware is what you put your potions in. So if you have a lot of glassware, you're obviously a witch. The Lord's Prayer, which if you don't know is a very Christian thing to be able to do. By the way, somebody can give me the time really fast so I know how much time I have left.
It is 12:31.
Oh, great. We'll be able to finish this. So with the Lord's Prayer, if you don't know, this is a very common thing. A lot of Catholic and Southern religious sects that know what the Lord's Prayer is. Well, the Lord, so God, would not allow you to say this because clearly you are of the devil. So they would ask you to recite it, and if you couldn't recite it word for word, you are a witch because God would stop you from being able to say it correctly. Yes?
Did they ever interrogate men for being witches?
So yeah, there was no warlocks during this time. The vast majority were women. A lot of this was women trying to get rid of women they didn't like. But one man did die, and about 20 more were accused but let free. But remember, this is a very patriarchy society. People don't trust women. They think women are liars, or they are not smart enough to figure out what's right and wrong. So a lot of times they're not going to trust the women, but they will trust the men simply because they are male. Only one of them dies, but he wasn't a witch, and we'll talk about that in just a sec. So, touching the inflicted, they would make the witch touch a child, and if the child had a seizure, they were a witch. Yes?
With the Lord's Prayer test, if they pass that, did they try another one?
Yeah. Depends on how bad they want them gone. If they really want them to die, they're going to do all these. Until you fail, pretty much. Because then they're just going to say, well, she was able to cast a spell that taught her the Lord's Prayer as she was speaking. Whatever it could be. Or the devil told her what the Lord's Prayer was. This one's fun. Basically, they tie you to a chair. They dunk you in and out of water until you confess that you're a witch. And there's no stopping. The longest one was about 38 hours. Constant dunking in and out of the water until they said they were a witch, and then they were hung. Yeah. Super fun. This is how the one guy died. So basically what they would do is they'd take two boards, put you in between, and they put rocks on top of you. If you were a witch, you would be able to take that weight off of you or survive. So therefore you were a witch and be hung. But if you died, good news, you weren't a witch. That's how the one guy died. The one male that died was by this. So the good news is officially he's not a witch. Right? Yeah.
Did they get in trouble for false accusations?
Nope. Nope. And oftentimes the people who were let go would be barred for life, and they would typically flee the area because they wouldn't be allowed to own property anymore. Yeah. Kind of sad. And then the final one, which is probably the most famous one, is they would tie you to an anchor or iron or a rock. They would throw you into a river. If you sunk, then you were not a witch. But if you survived, you were a witch because you were able to escape using your spells and things like that. Yeah, super fun. So, in the end, okay, listen, we're not done yet. So, in the end, 20 were accused, or 200 were accused. 19 people were hung on Gallows Hill. That's the most famous. So if you've ever seen Hocus Pocus, that's actually supposed to be Gallows Hill. One was pressed to death. That was that single male. And then 4 people died awaiting their trial, including Sarah, not Sarah Good, but Sarah Osborne. Sarah Osborne died waiting for her trial. Hey, wait. You guys are getting super excited. Now, kind of why this whole thing happened was that Puritanism, they wanted the perfect society, and witches were not. If you don't know, in the Bible, multiple mentions of how witchcraft is bad is mentioned in the Bible. A lot of deep south, very religious communities actually will not have Harry Potter because they're so scared of witchcraft. It's on the banned books list because of the witchcraft. So next class, did you have a quick question?
How many cities were there?
How many what?
Cities.
It was in one single city, Salem, Massachusetts. The fear of witchcraft, though, is going to spread, but this particular instance was over 3 months in one city. Okay.